Tonight, in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television, the All-Anglophone Conference might not take place in the Southwest Regional Headquarters of Buea. The meeting, which was supposed to take place, or an authorization, is yet to be issued by the government of Cameroun, according to members of the organizing committee of the All-Anglophone Conference. We'll tell you more in this edition of the news. Also ahead, we talk about Professor Maurice Kamto that has highly criticized the destruction of some parts of the head office of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement here in the economic capital, Douala. He was speaking as he returned from the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Plus, we are going to be talking about Christopher Fomunyon, that is equally giving proposals as far as the conflict in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon is concerned. He has indicated that only a genuine and inclusive dialogue can be able to resolve the current impasse. So those are headlines. We shall be right back with the details. Stay with us. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 p.m. We are welcoming you back from the weekend. You're watching the primetime newscast on Equinoxe television this 19th of November 2018. We begin right away here in the economic capital, Douala, with Professor Maurice Kamto of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party that highly condemned the destruction of parts of the CRM head office here in the country's economic capital, Douala. He was speaking today and he promised to fight and defend militants who are being tried after they recently were arrested during a peaceful protest which took place in some parts of Cameroon, precisely here in the country's economic capital, Douala. They are due to appear in court that is going to be on the 4th of December 2018. Babila Jonathan, Machida Kemazu, and Danny Warrenzodo tell us more. We come back to the report of Babila Jonathan, Machida Kemazu, and Danny Warrenzodo on the Cameroon Renaissance Movement president, Professor Maurice Kamto, that criticized the destruction of some parts of the CRM head office here in the country's economic capital, Douala, by security forces. He said that he would continue to defend supporters of the said political party who are being tried after they took part in a peaceful manifestation in the city of Douala recently. Details in the following report.
The national president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement and presidential candidate, Professor Maurice Kamto, is received by a huge crowd at the Douala International Airport and at the party Littoral Regional Head Office in the Douala 1 subdivision. Monday, he has just returned from the headquarters of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He will not reveal the purpose and content of his meeting with AU officials.
The population, militants and sympathizers of my political party and the whole Cameroonians will be duly informed on due time.
Professor Maurice Kamto has come to sympathize with some militants of the CRM political party who recently came under the repressive force of forces of law and order during a peaceful demonstration against electoral hold-up.
For those who were injured, to bring my compassion, and for those who will be facing the court as from the 4th of December, to let them know that we will never let them down. We will be beside them, we will support them by all legal means to make sure that they are set free and that their freedom is respected by the court of this land.
He also condemns the destruction of some parts of the party head office in Douala.
On the 17th, I guess, of October, after the march or during the demonstration, the force of security, I don't know if they were police or gendarmes, fired some gas bullet here, destroying, mainly the glasses on the doors and so on and so forth, which is something, according to me, clear violation of our laws.
Speaking to militants, sympathizers and supporters of the CRM political party converged on the party's Littoral Regional Head Office. Maurice Kamto says he is battling to put a smile on the faces of Cameroonians and that the battle would be won in peace. Peace and only peace.
That is Babla Jonathan there reporting. On to something else. The national president of the United Democratic Party, the UDP, has described as irresponsible the payment of senatorial campaign funds 8 months after the election took place this 2018. El-Haj Lawan Bako called on the government of Cameroun to sanction the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, whom he accused of the delay. He was speaking during a press conference in Bamenda recently. Details with Fomi Armstrong-Sander and Mbo Stella.
The national president of the United Democratic Party, El-Haj Lawan Bako, has qualified as illegal the payment of the 2018 senatorial election campaign funds to his party 8 months after the election. Speaking in a press conference in the Northwest Regional Chief Town of Bamenda, El-Haj Lawan Bako brandished documents to prove the deposit of the funds into the UDP party's bank account.
We seize this opportunity to inform you that at long last, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Atanganji Paul, has paid the UDP campaign funds for 2018 senatorial election without interest.
Regretting the late payment without interest, which he says violates Article 285 of the Electoral Code, President Lawan Bako accused the Ministry of Territorial Administration, calling on President Paul Biya to sanction the head of this ministerial department.
It is regrettable that it has taken him 8 months to pay in this money into the UDP bank account on the 14th of November 2018, whereas we had long deposited our bank account for that purpose since March 2018. We hereby urge the head of state to sanction Mr. Atanganji Paul of Minat for his irregular acts, which we describe as acts of irresponsible acts.
The press conference was equally an opportunity for El-Haj Lawan Bako to address recent happenings in Cameroon.
We can call it agitation by one of the candidates, Mr. Kamto, which the UDP urged him to prepare more for the next election than wasting time going in the streets.
He praised the recruitment exercise of 2,000 PhD holders into state universities across Cameroon launched by President Paul Biya.
We have talked about the situation that happened with this young girl in Equinoxe.
El-Haj Lawan Bako, chairman of the United Democratic Party, also called on President Paul Biya to check and sanction what he qualifies as excesses of members of government.
On to something else now, Dr. Christopher Fomunyo. We are talking about the Anglophone crisis. President of the Fomunyo Foundation has issued a statement calling on the government of Cameroon to take concrete measures at resolving the Anglophone crisis. He suggests that the government should release all the detainees of the Anglophone crisis, ensure a ceasefire and an end to hostilities, and most importantly, ensure an inclusive and genuine dialogue. He was speaking in a press release last weekend. Details with our reporter Innocent Aze.
Dr. Christopher Fomunyo, president of the Fomunyo Foundation, has once again reacted on the deepening Anglophone crisis that has claimed thousands of lives, inflicting suffering and pains to Anglophone Cameroonians. In a statement published November 18, he paints Cameroon as more divided today, more polarized, fragile and insecure than ever before in its modern history due to government's refusal to give an inclusive and genuine dialogue, a chance for national reconciliation. The statement reminds Cameroonians of goodwill, of their civic duty to rise and strongly demand a solution against violence, further disintegration, and eventual state collapse. Dr. Christopher Fomunyo has outlined some recommendations to stop killing, violence, and hostilities. The Fomunyo Foundation president began by suggesting the release of all those detained in connection with the Anglophone crisis, immediate ceasefire and lift of curfew in Anglophone Cameroon, plus end killing killings and acts of barbarism on persons and properties. These appeals, he wishes, should not be neglected by government just like the previous ones. Dr. Christopher Fomunyo also appeals that government should avoid the manipulation of security and administrative services and pull back the country from the negative viral spiral of hate speech, ethnic stigmatization, violence and harassment of independent personnel, notably journalists, lawyers and teachers, who are pillars of every democratic society. Government, in the statement published by Dr. Fomunyo Christopher, is now expected to take concrete measures to regain peace, rebuild the country's reputation, and restore the dignity of Cameroonians. These extraordinary steps are expected to be leveled by an inclusive and genuine dialogue.
And as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned, would the third Anglophone conference finally take place? The answer to this question might be a no, as the administration is yet to issue an authorization to the various committees in charge of organizing the Anglophone conference. The All Anglophone Conference was described as a start of solutions to the current crisis in the two Anglophone regions of the country, but it seems the announced two-day meeting might not take place on November the 21st to the 22nd of November as planned. Members of the various organizing committee or the members of the organizing committee met in Boya and in Yaoundé today, and they indicated to Equinoxe television that was just a few minutes ago that they are yet to receive an authorization. It should be noted that the said conference is taking place at a time when Dr. Simon Munzo, an experienced and resourceful person, has pulled out of the organizing committee of the third All Anglophone General Conference expected to take place in Boya, that was to begin on the 21st of November to the 22nd of November, that is this Wednesday. The now former spokesperson of the All Anglophone Conference, according to Christian Cardinal Toumi, Wednesday, November 14 in Douala, said that he is leaving because of several criticisms. Of course, we shall be telling you more on that in our subsequent newscast, and in our subsequent newscast as well, we'll be telling you about whether the meeting will take place and why there is no authorization up to now. On to something else, we now talk about a hectare of a piece of land used to cultivate cannabis that has been discovered and destroyed by elements of the gendarmerie in Fumbo, that is in own division of the west region of Cameroon. The alleged cultivators are now behind bars. Details with Simanji Kangebre.
A green farm at Mabara village, Kutara subdivision, west region of Cameroon. The 2 hectares of land contains Indian herbs that are being cultivated at one end, and at the other side it is being dried, ready for consumption. According to the commander, Japa Idrisu of Fumban, the lead investigator,
j'ai été informé par le commandant de la brigade de gendarmerie de Fumbo.
The commander of the Fumbot Gendarmerie Brigade informed me about the existence of this farm. We left Fumban and arrived when the 2 individuals taking care of the farm were still asleep, and we destroyed the farm.
Ces individus qui dormaient encore. C'est ainsi donc que nous avons procédé à la destruction en présence de monsieur le procureur.
The cultivator, who have virtually been residing at the farm, were picked up after the commander of the Gendarmerie Brigade in Fumbot reported the matter to his colleague of Fumban. On the ground, the State Council, Ligomon Jeng Matthew, was also present. It is a continuous fight to track down those trafficking Indian herbs. The state has put in place enough of material to ensure it comes to an end. After the destruction of the hut where the cultivators have been residing and the dry herbs, the 2 unfortunate culprits were whisked to the Gendarmerie Brigade in Fumbot for further investigation.
Two suspected bandits have been arrested at Rifo Share In Accra, in the country's economic capital, Douala, the young men were caught by elements of the National Gendarmerie about with a car. They have been detained while investigations are on course to track down the accomplices. Greater details will be coming up. We'll be telling you more on that in our subsequent newscast. Those are the two suspected bandits that were arrested at Rifosh in Accra here in the economic capital. Douala security forces are fighting against rising insecurity and high crime wave in the city of Douala. We can see how the alleged bandits fell into the dragnet of security forces here in the city of Douala. We, of course, will be telling you more on that in our subsequent newscast. Now, on our obituary tonight, Cameroonian artist Aveni Ava has died. He died 3 days after he was shot by some unknown gunmen in Yaoundé Centre region of Cameroon. Details with our reporter Franklin Mwabe.
Cameroon folklore musician Aveni Ava has died in the Yaoundé Central Hospital. He died November 18, 3 days after he was shot in his house by men of the underworld.
J'ai un choc formidable. Je ne suis pas un homme. Mon fils, il m'a dit que maman, je pars chercher mon disque qu'il vient de sortir.
According to the story told by his mother, Abeni left the house to get his album that he was about launching. On returning home, as he alighted from his vehicle, he was shot 2 times by unknown men. As told by the mother, Abeni was found lying on the ground in a pool of blood. He was rushed to the hospital where he finally died 3 days after. The talented upcoming artist was said to be calm, respectful, and loved by all who knew him.
Un enfant calme, respectueux, tout le quartier, tout le village, même dans tout le monde entier pleurait avant.
The family of Aveni believed he was assassinated as not even the money in his pocket or vehicle was taken.
Il avait même l'argent dans les poches, ils n'ont pas demandé l'argent, ils ne voulaient même pas la voiture. On les a envoyés pour le finir, je ne sais pas. Mon fils.
The Minister of Arts and Culture, Narcisse Mwele Kombi, said the Cameroon artistic community has lost a remarkable figure and that many young people must be inspired by Aveni's life. He said that while expressing his condolence to the bereaved family.
Je veux qu'on les arrête, on doit faire les enquêtes. Comment on peut tuer mon enfant comme un chien? Il a fait quoi? Il a volé qui? Il ne... Okay.
The family of Aveni has called for an investigation on the death of their son and husband. Aveni Ava leaves behind his wife and mother, among others, to mourn him.
We now talk about the African Union Summit, which took place in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. In attendance were some administrative authorities and the Prime Minister, head of government in Cameroon. During the said summit of the African Union, key reforms were equally adopted. The reforms were proposed by Paul Kagame, the President of Uganda. Let's have the details of that report with Mfomi Armstrong Sanda.
Few weeks to the end of his mandate as President of the Reforms Committee of the African Union, the reforms introduced by Paul Kagame came under review at the extraordinary summit of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. One of the major objectives of President Paul Kagame was to ameliorate the autonomy of the African Union, institutionalize the Union and make it independent. Addressing heads of states and ministers from the 55 African Union member states, Rwandan President Paul Kagame urged African heads of states to come to an agreement on long-debated reforms to the continental body. In proposals unveiled last year, Paul Kagame envisioned a more narrowly focused African Union headed by a powerful commission whose bills are covered by member states rather than foreign donors. But some key African states have continued to hold reservations about empowering a continental body which they believe could infringe on their sovereignty. This challenge further affected some reforms proposed by Paul Kagame. For instance, Paul Kagame proposed that member states elect a chairperson who could then appoint his or her own deputy and commissioner. But African Union leaders rejected that proposal. He had also flooded reducing African Union's scope to focus on 4 key areas, notably peace and security, economic integration, political affairs, and Africa's global representation. But African Union leaders rather resolved to reduce 8 commissions to 6 by merging 4 commissions that were seen as redundant. However, some 24 countries are said to have made progress on implementing a 0.2% import levy to finance the union amidst external opposition.
That is for me, Armstrong Sander, reporting on the key reforms that were adopted during the African Union Summit, which took place, the reforms that were proposed by Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, who is equally chairman of the African Union Commission. They're bringing us to the end of this edition of the news. But before we go, I'm presenting this news for the first time since my release from the New Bell Central Prison here in the country's economic capital, Douala. That was on the 10th of November 2018, 4 days after I was placed behind bars. All the charges were so far dropped during the hearing that took place at the military tribunal. That was on the 12th of November 2018, thanks to the mobilizations of my colleagues at Equinoxe Television and the management, Cameroonians at home and abroad, everybody that took part in the mobilization as well as supported me. I say thank you so much. They're bringing us to the end of this edition of the news. Wishing you blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.